James is arguably the Chet Holmgren of D'Lo and KC. He's got the whole vibe right here. D'Lo and KC on KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320, driven by Lashes Elk Grove Dodge. Always live on the free Odyssey app. What's up, Hammer?
Not a whole lot. There was a time where I was a skinny white guy, just not anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's not like you're big, like out of shape or anything. At least you don't look that way.
I'm a little out of shape. I've been getting in my my sort of pre-game, season warm up where I start walking around the lake and doing that stuff. Yeah.
I see.
Oh, yes. James is at the age where training is now a walk. Well, and then of course James has the perpetual bad back. So
yes, I do, and I'm not gonna take any pics and post them on, on social media with my my top zipped down and yeah.
Thanks, James.
like Trista Crick.
Trista really went the whole way.
She's awesome.
She started to zip. I was like, wait a minute, Trista.
Wait, no.
Or yeah, maybe it was like Dusty Rhodes. What the hell is going on?
I was like, well, let's see where this goes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Is he the third man?
Where is he?
What the hell is going on there?
Oh man, she's hilarious though.
She is funny, man. She is a wild card for sure.
Hey James.
Are so funny when I'm the butt of like all like
call him John B. Don't even like to think about it. I don't know. That's a deep John B cut. I don't think everybody know about that one.
No, maybe not.
Well, you know about that. I don't know if the chatty house know about that.
I don't like the way you said that. You said that with a tone to it. Well, you know about it. Like you're
the founder and the creator of Passions of Sound, or what was it called?
Sound of Passion. What is wrong with you?
Anybody who comes up with that, they definitely know about all the deep John B cuts.
No doubt. I'm more of a what you say, boo. Like I'm more of a cool, relaxed guy.
Bruh, cool, relax.
Yeah.
Slept on R&B classic album.
Yeah, that's a classic. Even James rocked the old cool, relaxed joints back in the day.
I have no idea what you guys have said for the last minute and a half.
That's okay.
Say I do.
Let's try to bring this in a little bit. Let's start with here. This was actually a question we asked earlier. Maybe I'm assuming your many travels with Jerry Reynolds, you might have gotten the answer to this. How did Bill Russell become the Sacramento Kings head coach?
Oh, that's a good question. It was really early. So I think it was the 87, 88 season.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking to make a splash and bring in somebody who, Bill Russell had a tremendous amount of success as a coach. He was a player coach in his final 3 years in the NBA. So he won 2 championships, both as a player and coach. I think they were just looking to, for something to energize the fans in Sacramento, and Bill Russell was a big name and highly respected, and it didn't go that well. And he wasn't fully engaged once he got here. That was something that was very clear. But he also made a lot of the deals that, that you go back from that era, and like the Purvis Ellison draft pick, that was Bill Russell. He also drafted Ricky Berry the year before. He drafted Vinny Del Negro. He traded for Roddy McRae. He traded for Ralph Sampson. He traded for Wayman Tisdale. So he had actually done quite a bit of, the things that you remember from that era. They were on him. But he just wasn't fully engaged, and he went from coach and then bumped up into the front office, and Jerry took over as head coach. And then he wasn't even there that long, and was out of Sacramento.
Did he inherit Kenny Smith on the Kings roster, or did he draft him?
No, he inherited. Kenny Smith was the year before.
Yeah.
He may have traded Kenny Smith. I can't remember how long Kenny Smith was.
Set him free.
Yeah. I can't remember how long Kenny Smith was a King. but yeah, he
Apparently, he traded him because he didn't want him around a bunch of losers.
he was trying to. That was a great story. Kenny Smith told about him trying to trade everybody. And the only story that I really know from that era is the one I don't want to talk about is the Ricky Berry story. That's the only one that really stands out from that era, except for the fact that like we had heard like things like he was just disengaged. He was reading the newspaper a lot while the Kings were practicing. He expected to have better players, and coaches in Sacramento are still expecting the same thing. So nothing's changed.
So I was going to say, sorry, Casey, go ahead.
No, just go ahead. You're good.
The Kings' desire to make a splash with a coaching hire is apparently decades old.
Oh yeah. I mean, a couple of decades old. Yeah. I mean, well, you got to remember, right after that, they brought in Dick Motta, and Dick Motta again was one of those guys that had a huge reputation for not being very cool and being very difficult to work with, but being a great coach. Guy who got the most out of his players, and that didn't work at all either, at all. So,
Who was on the Dick Motta teams? Was that maybe Antoine Carr? Who one of those teams that he didn't really get along with?
I'm trying to think because
Antoine Carr might have been a little later. Actually,
I think it's right after Russell, so he was probably there.
Jerry was there for 2 years, right? After so Bill Russell was like 87, 88, and then I think Jerry was there for the next 2 seasons, and then that's where Dick Motta came in. That feels like it would be
that might have been Antoine Carter,
like L Train.
That makes sense to me. I mean, the 91 season is a year that they traded all of their players for draft picks, and that is okay. So Dick Motta was there for the 90-91 season and part of the 91-92 season before he left and Rex Hughes took over. Dick Motta, his second season is a year that they drafted Lionel Simmons, Travis Mays, Anthony Bonner, Dwayne Coswell. It was a sort of a reboot year, and so he was part of that deal, which wouldn't be fun to be part of because that was really inexperienced.
Is a reboot year anything like a gap year?
Yeah, it's it's very similar to the year where let's see. They traded DeMarcus and Omri. They waived Matt Barnes. Rudy Gay went down with the Achilles injury. And then they came back the next season with the 4 rookies. Well, actually, it was 5 rookies. So they had Fox, Justin Jackson, Harry Giles, Frank Mason, and that's the year Bogdan Bogdanovic came over. And so that it is kind of like a gap year where all of a sudden you're starting over with a very young group of players. And it's really, really hard to win at the NBA level when most of your team is, they're cutting their teeth. They don't know what they are, who they're going to be in the NBA.
Is DeMarcus and Rudy the same year?
They both left that year. Well, Rudy left at the end of that year.
So Rudy got hurt at the beginning of the season, and then
I think he blew his Achilles in January. So they were actually in it. They were only a game behind Denver at the All-Star break, but that's when they traded Cousins, and they knew that there was no way to get there.
I don't think I realized that was the same season. I remember Rudy getting hurt. I remember that vividly. I didn't realize that was before DeMarcus. Yeah,
that was horrible. That was on our end of the court when I used to sit on the set the whole time. Right down below us, you saw him take a bad step, and then he was on the ground pounding a fist while the ball went the other way. That was horrible. Because, again, Rudy Gay is one of the all-time nice guys. And funny and cool and, one of those players that you actually like to be around. He's just a different guy. I always called him Switzerland. Like, he's the guy that everyone in the locker room can go to and have conversations, and, like, he's kind of the peacekeeper, but maybe more of just a dude that gets along with the whole room. And so if there is some peacekeeping that needs to go on, some of it would go through him, but not that much. Like, it's funny, the dynamic behind the scenes, you would never have guessed, like, some of the dynamics behind the scenes. Like, Francisco Garcia was like the godfather of the Kings. And so he was right in the middle of the locker room, and he had control of, like, the the young guys, but then he also was the buffer with the more established players, and he was the voice in the locker room. So when things started to go south, or when Cousins DeMarcus started running his mouth in front of the media, like before media session began, but when media was in the room, Francisco would stop Cousins and then go to the media and say, "Hey, look, I'm just gonna like he doesn't mean it. I'll talk to him about it. That should have never been said. Let's move on. Can you guys not print that if that would be okay?" And it's like, yeah, so he was that guy. He was the guy that kind of was everybody's big brother. Rudy was kind of everybody's best friend.
With going back real quick to Bill Russell, my Damien and I were trying to kind of go down memory lane to when Bill Russell was coming here. I was still pretty young. I definitely don't remember the Kings at that point. James a little older. They ain't a whole lot older than us. But do you remember him coming out here and like what kind of buzz there was with, Bill Russell is about to coach the Kings? I'm pretty sure it was a pretty big story out here when Bill Russell signed on to be the coach.
Yeah, it was a huge story. And I think it coincides with, like, they're trying to drum up excitement because that's when the new arena was opening as well. So Arco 2, I think, opened in 88. But that was sort of the goal, to have everything positive. You got a big-name coach. You're bringing in big-name players. They sort of stumbled into Wayman Tisdale because he had not been very good as a pro playing for the Pacers, and they kind of stumbled into him, and all of a sudden he was exciting, and Rodney McRae was exciting. It was an interesting time, and that's kind of what you do when you're going into a new building. And then just really short after that, it was like, okay, this isn't working at all, and they took major steps back. Especially, it's hard to, like, how much the Ricky Berry situation impacted the franchise and sort of where they were going when you take away a potential star-level player off a team, and after a rookie season, it kind of changes everything as well. So, it's dark times have followed the Kings throughout their history, but I don't know that was so much like, I don't think Bill Russell's era should be looked at as some horrible moment in time for the Kings. The Ralph Sampson trade hurt them a bit, but not horrible. I mean, it's like Jim Peterson, and yeah.
This is like something, I don't know, weird that maybe only interests me. Wonder where he lived out here. Do you know? I wonder where he lived. Was he Lamb Park? Where was he at?
It's a good question because a lot of players, like younger players usually live right around the arena, especially in Natomas. They're guys that had houses like right down the street. But the more established players, a lot of time live in Granite Bay. They live in the Pocket. Sometimes El Dorado Hills has become a little bit more popular with some of the players. But at that time, it's certainly not Natomas because it wasn't even grown up and built at all.
I was thinking maybe Lamb Park.
It's possible. Like, I know Paul Westphal lived in like the Fair Oaks area. I mean, they try to find spots that are pretty nice, and you don't have to worry about school districts, and you're kind of like self-contained. That's a good question. At that time, it's such a long time ago. Where did everyone live? It's also possible he lived like in the fabulous 40s area, and off of J Street in downtown.
Yeah.
Is there any? By the way, I forgot to mention this all day. This hour, we've got tickets to see Wu-Tang. It's a true story. We've got tickets to see the Wu-Tang Clan on Ted Series. We're going to give those away this hour. So hang tight. We'll give you all the important information coming up here, but we'll send you to see the Wu-Tang Clan at the Toyota Amphitheater. Is there any like lasting impact at all from because it's like his stops is certainly in Sacramento, and really to a certain degree he had a much longer stint in Seattle. That's more of like a footnote. It's always looked at as obviously the championships, the player coach, all of that. But is there any like impact at all from his time here with Sacramento?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you think about that time, I think everyone thinks about Jerry Reynolds and his time as a coach and stuff around then, because he was coach either 2 or 3 times. He took over.
He was the coach before Bill Russell and after Bill Russell.
Yeah, he took over for Bill Russell for sure. I think that if you look at that era of Kings basketball, it's usually known for, the tragedies, the new arena being built, and Greg Luke building the rafters, and then botching. I don't know if they botched it, but the Purvis Ellison draft pick, it was just unlucky more than botching, and just because there was nothing you could do about the, that was a bad draft, and you get the number 1 pick and a bad draft, so that was a bummer for Sacramento. But then I think it's sort of the transition out of that. Right after that is a Mitch Richmond trade and stuff like that. It really starts to change the culture and everything else of the franchise.
Yeah, it's one of those things where growing up, I didn't really it wasn't this big thing that I obviously always remembered, but I got a little older and would dig into past stories and pictures and Bill Russell. Wait a minute, he coached the Kings? What? I had no idea. It's not something that's really celebrated a lot. Not, in a negative way. It's just maybe because it was so short. And like you said, that's Jerry's era around here. Jerry Reynolds is the guy that you think of with Arco 1 and making the transition and things of that nature. You just kind of forget about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Bill Russell never passed out on the court.
That's true. That's true. That's true. It's interesting, that era. First of all, it's all local news and the newspaper from that era. There is no internet. So that does actually mean a lot.
Sean Cunningham was covering Bill Russell's time.
Well, and
enough, you could probably find Sean's video.
Yeah, and shout out to my guy Sean Cunningham, who actually went and got Jerry to talk about it, because I know Bill Russell had a tremendous impact on Jerry. Just being around him, being around that legend, was crazy and eye opening. But it was kind of a tumultuous stretch there. Nothing really worked out there, and it was so short lived. It was almost like a gimmick, and it didn't work. And so kind of interesting how it all played out.
It's funny looking back at that time too. I knew this before. It's funny seeing it in the context of our conversation. They hired Jack McKinney too a few years earlier,
wow.
Which is kind of funny in the sense of, oh, you guys, wow, we were chasing that name even back then. Of course, Jack McKinney credited for, or a lot of people credit him for, the launch of the Showtime Lakers and that offense. Of course, if you watch Winning Time, you might have got a little more insight into him and how it all ended and so on. And to see his name there, it's oh, wow, they really have been. This is an organizational issue that transcends owners, general managers, the whole deal. It is something embedded in this organization to try to make a splash.
And before that, it was Cotton Fitzsimmons.
There was another one,
Kansas City. Yeah. But the one once after Russell, they tried it again. Dick Motta was a big name coach at that time, and so when they went for Dick Motta, he had a very, very long and strong career. I mean, he's a coach with almost 1,000 career wins. A really strong playoff record. He's a guy that you were swinging for the fence again. I mean, he won an NBA championship. So with the Bullets, interesting stuff.
So James, Bill Russell, 11 rings. What was the stat that you had earlier, Damon, where he either won a championship or MVP in all but one season?
Yeah,
when he was in the NBA.
He won one or the other every single year.
The most accomplished career in team sports, really, of all time. That's something I would say we'd never see again. What do you think about that?
Yeah, he's the greatest winner professional sports has ever seen, for sure. I mean, I don't know if we'll see another winner like him, just because pro sports have changed so much. But I mean, even to go back to the fact that he was a player coach in his final 3 years and won 2 rings as the head coach. I mean, that's just crazy. So yeah, I mean, he's a legend, and I feel like I wrote about it yesterday just briefly. That's one of the regrets I have. I have had the, you know, I don't know, the good fortune of meeting so many NBA greats. So, I was working on a big man book, which I still have, maybe one day I'll write, but I gathered quotes for years, and I interviewed Bob Lanier. I interviewed Alonzo Mourning, Patrick Ewing, Akeem Olajuwon, Kevin McHale, like just so many different players for a book I was going to write. And he's one of those players that are always on the list. But anytime he was in the arena when I was there, he was usually pretty guarded. Like they didn't have a lot of people go around him, especially in the last 12 years. I mean, we're talking about, a pretty, he's been up there in age for
70 plus, yeah.
Yeah. So, so it wasn't like you could go get one-on-one with Bill Russell. That's just not going to happen. Where it was strange that I was able to get one-on-one with Bob Lanier one time. But, it's just the way things work out every once in a while. So it's kind of one of those things where I'm bummed out I never got to actually meet him and have a conversation with him. Just because he was an incredible legend of the game, and he'll be totally missed. He's one of the best ambassadors for the game. He's also, he made so much for civil rights movement and social justice stuff, and he's a guy that helped give players a voice. Helped show players that it's okay to have a voice in politics, in social settings, and go ahead and put your ideas out there and your thoughts out there on some of these things.
Yeah, you mentioned, and I think we kind of casually mentioned, oh yeah, he was a player coach. He added more championships at the end of his career as a player coach for the Boston Celtics. He was the first black head coach in the NBA. Like, he was still a player, but he had the responsibility. And Kenny and I were talking about this in depth earlier. The responsibility you have when you're the first anything. We're waiting, and though I think we're going to be waiting for a very, very long time for the first woman to be named a head coach in the NBA, and the significant amount of pressure that comes with being the first has to be damn near unbearable. And for Bill Russell to not only do it as the first black head coach in the NBA, but to do it as the first black head coach. Oh, by the way, he's still a player on a team that has won multiple titles with him just as a player. Now you're expected to go out there, do it as a player and do it as a coach. And obviously, by the way, you're doing it in Boston also. Yeah. And you were able to go out there and do that. It's just, he had he carried that responsibility incredibly, and he had the perfect demeanor for it.
Yeah, I think, it's just an interesting way that he was able to navigate a career and become so much more. So many people just flocked to him. Anytime you see him, there were players flocking to him to go and say hello and sort of touch history, sort of. And I think almost more than anyone else that I've seen, he's such an ambassador for the game. And I think that's what hurts the NBA so much. He's a guy who didn't go away after all of his championships. He stuck around and continued to work to better the game and to, further the cause of the league as a whole, and all that entails between, becoming a star-driven league. He's one of the first stars, and you go back to that era, and it's him and Wilt. They are the stars of the stars, and I think it's funny when you talk about the greatest players of all time, you always bring up Wilt, and for me, he's top two with Jordan, and I put Jordan above him, but Wilt is number two, and Bill Russell probably is at the back end of the top 10 if he makes that, and he's the guy with not only one for the thumb, but he's got two handfuls and an extra ring for his time in the league. It's just absolutely incredible.
Funny too. They played the clip a lot yesterday on Sports Center or whatever when he got the Lifetime Achievement Award, and it was, I think, Shaq, Akeem, Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo, and they're all there to, give him the award and give him the trophy, and he shakes all their hands, and then he looks and he starts pointing at each one of them, and he says, I would have kicked your ass.
Yeah.
Man. And then he had obviously his signature laugh, man. So funny, and it was always funny when he would like flick off Charles Barkley. That always cracked me up.
Yeah, they had a fun relationship. And that's what I think it is. A lot of it is it's just that. It's just that he was fun and he was still such a representative of that era of basketball, Wilt dying so young. And a lot of players from that era, it's like the amount of stress being 7 foot tall puts on a human body is just enormous. And the fact that he lived until 88 is amazing. It's not something you see with a lot of these guys. A lot of the great stars, even from, not just the 50s and 60s, but the 70s are already gone just because it's such a tremendous stress on the body to be that big. And so, yeah, it's just such an amazing legacy. I think that's the best way to describe it.
You know what else is really funny? You look at all those videos circulating around, and I just had to look over my shoulder for a minute because I have a large canvas print of the Ali Summit. That photo used to, on the early episodes of D'Lo and KC, you could see it in the background, but it's Bill Russell sitting next to Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, then Lou Alcindor, and Bill Russell's looked the same age for about 50 or 60 years. I did the math. He's 33 in this picture. He doesn't look that different than he did at the thing with Dikembe Mutombo and Shaquille O'Neal, all that. He's looked exact. I'm looking at this picture of him in high school. He's been a grown ass man from jump.
Yeah, even the last few times that we saw him, he didn't look that much different. I mean, sure, when you get him up and he's walking and it's not easy to walk, but he didn't look that much different than he did when he coached the Kings in, 87, 88.
I think that's part of the reason it felt like he was going to live forever, because he never really, like, when he's celebrating in the locker room and they're talking about the Celtics title and he's crying, he looks
the same.
the same. Like,
Yeah.
All he needed was like a little Just for Men or something like that, and it would have been the same thing.
Normally when someone says, well, they don't age, it's because they don't look older. Bill Russell looked a certain age, and he just stayed that way all the way up until yesterday when he left us.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Oh, go ahead, James.
Well, yeah, actually, Kevin Russ here in the chatty house brings up that Lieutenant Uhura, is it Nichols, passed away on Sunday as well.
Star Trek.
Yeah,
right?
Star Trek, but so much more than that. I mean, she's one of the first true black female characters on television. Her and Will
wasn't the thing. The William wasn't she the first interracial kiss on television?
Yes, the first interracial kiss on television. And she was 89, but then even after she did all the movies as well. So like 6 movies. So Star Trek, although if you ever go back and watch Star Trek, it seems like there's like hundreds of them. It only lasted 3 seasons. But then there were 6 movies. And then after that, following her run on the original series, she worked with NASA to be a spokeswoman and try to get female and minority recruits into NASA. And she's a big reason why color and gender barriers have been broken in NASA and space travel. It was a lot because of her. Just these are people that we're losing that just aren't. They're not just great people, as far as like what they did on a TV show or on a basketball court, but they've actually gone on to mean a lot for the world in general. And I think that's the hard part about losing people like this.
Yeah.
I was hoping, like, I saw her. I didn't know, like, Star Trek's not my vibe. I didn't know her name, but when I saw her picture, I was like, I think that's the woman who kissed. I think that's the kiss. So I dug into her a little bit more, started reading about it, read a little bit about the NASA stuff, and all I could think of was, man, I hope she doesn't get the Farrah Fawcett treatment. I hope she's not like forgot, because remember, was it Farrah Fawcett?
Yeah, it was Farrah Fawcett,
who passed away the same day as Michael Jackson did, and it's it was so like glossed over. I was like, I hope with this woman, this is legitimately 2 civil rights icons that passed away apparently within hours of each other.
Yeah, that's why I added her to my Sunday musings because out of respect, because I did feel like she's going to be wrapped up into it. And I think because we're on Twitter and we're on social media, we start to forget that that's a really small sample size of the world. So all I saw yesterday was one tribute after another to Bill Russell, but that's because that's who we follow, and that's the world we're in. We're in the sports world.
Yeah.
That's and that's a completely fair point. We'll come back. We'll keep this conversation going as it pertains to the Sacramento Kings. Maybe we'll bring it. Matt Coleman, we hardly knew you. Maybe we'll talk about that when we return. What does the loss of Matt Coleman mean for the Sacramento Kings? That's the stage of the offseason we're in, folks. And if that doesn't get you to stick around, a 4-pack of tickets to the Wu-Tang Clan will. We've got those next here on ESPN 1320. It's really one ticket. Jesse can't go because he's got to run the studio. James gets one, I get one, Kenny gets one, and you can go with the three of us.
Yeah,
There we go.
Jesse wouldn't go out in public with us anyways.
Did you guys see that tweet I had the other day with Sparky Anderson?
No.
So there's a picture. And I wasn't even trying to be a jackass, but I was literally blown away. But it was a picture of Sparky Anderson at 35 years old. The man looks 63. I'm like, 35? What?
That's,
35
you know,
years old.
my guy Jerry Reynolds, like he stopped aging in 1988.
Oh, that's that. I'm becoming clear of that. Looking at these pictures with Bill Russell, like, why is Jerry look exactly? The only thing Jerry missing is the cross on his neck. That's the only thing right now.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, good old Sparky. I'm looking at it right now. I'm gonna tag you, Dave. They talking about
I'm trying to scroll through your timeline and see it. I don't know how I missed it.
about 35. What?
I cannot name one member of the Wu-Tang Clan. Leezy. Sorry.
Well, the Wu-Tang Clan is in fact nothing to fuck with. So
Yeah,
keep that in mind.
Wu-Tang coming, and not in the same vein, but we got Danny Lake coming to town.
I don't know who that is.
Nick Wagner's cell phone was a top 5 funny in recent memory. That was fantastic.
That was hilarious.
It was embarrassing, yes, but it was funny.
I gotta at least know one Wu-Tang. I don't know.
You do. You might just not know it. Cash rules everything around me. I mean,
he might not know.
No, yeah, that's a little deep in the culture. Old Dirty Bastard, ODB,
Probably not.
RZA, Ghostface Killer.
I'm looking.
The old dirty bastard.
Wu Wear. We're gonna do an episode on Wu Wear.
I mean, some of them look familiar for sure, but
I feel like
I've
there's
heard
a joke in that line too, but
Kyron brings up a good point. You know the song Mariah Carey, Fantasy?
me and Mariah go back like babies with pacifiers.
I don't. Man, that's
Old
tough.
dirt dog, no lie.
Mm.
Kicking fantasy
That's
hot.
Is that the most? That's the most, by far, the most popular song a member of Wu-Tang Clan has been a part of.
Oh yeah, that was a huge pop hit. Yeah. What you mean by that? That's the song white people like the most by the Wu-Tang Clan. Yeah, that's definitely.
Did we ever find out why ODB shouted out Sacramento?
No, I was gonna say there's the Sacramento shout out in the song, but yeah. There's a good one. Got Your Money was a huge record. That was pretty massive. That's a good call. I forgot about that one. Baby, I got your money, don't you worry.
I know that song.
Now that's my particular favorite, but I think these other
that's my favorite too.
both versions are my favorite.
Is the biggest one.
I saw
Dave, you
Mary
said you
J.
remember you heard Got Your Money?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't have guessed that.
and I've heard. I saw Mary J. in concert. In a weird. That was at like the Met. I went to this conference with my wife, and at the conference they brought her into like literally the the museum.
Yeah, I wish I could see her again, but you come into Oakland, not Sacramento. They got to do better.
Okay, we're coming back. Yeah, but James Ham was just about to tell us about the Mary J. Blige concert he went to. It's been an eventful day over here on ESPN 1320. We've had the good, the bad, and the ugly as well. Right now, we've got the great, we've got the legends, the Wu-Tang Clan. They're going to be at the Toyota Amphitheater October 2nd, and we've got your tickets. Summers Live is here. You could get 4 tickets for $80, all into select shows in the Sacramento area. Tickets are available from now till August 9th at livenation.com/Summers Live. Wu-Tang Clan, Toyota Amphitheater. Caller number 3 right now, 916-349-1320. We will have tickets all week, every day this week at 2 o'clock. We didn't have them today at 2 o'clock because I forgot. So we're giving them away now. We've got your hookup, Wu-Tang Clan, October. And shout out to Charlie in the promotions department.
Yeah, man. That's
finally figured out what this show is all about.
That's big time right there. That's big time. The other one, it was the country summer in the park, country something.
No, we don't have any country summer. No, none of that. No Kenny Chesney tickets. No
Kenny Chesney, that's what it was.
No rodeo or bull riding tickets. Just Wu-Tang.
And look, I'm getting on in the chatty house. They're getting on Ham for not knowing not one of the members of the Wu-Tang Clan. I'm gonna defend Ham a little bit because look, that's what we're into. If any member from Nirvana walked in my house right now, like somebody get this guy out of my house. I don't know who the stranger is.
Okay. Well, if the only member of Nirvana I know walked in your house, I'd have a lot more questions. So.
Cobain?
Kurt Cobain,
yeah. That would be a little strange. And no, I don't like country in the park. No, I'm a classic rock guy. Like that's all. Like, and yes, I mean, I think Dave Grohl was in Nirvana as well.
I was about to ask that, but I didn't want to say that out loud and be wrong, and then be.
I'm almost positive he was the drummer. Yeah, he was a drummer.
Okay. I thought so, but I wasn't confident enough in my grunge rock knowledge to blurt that one out. Though Kurt Cobain, I'm confident in.
See,
one of those guys. Like I remember the day he died. Like I
do remember that was a Caraway
big deal. Yeah, I was in junior. I was in junior high. It might have been like 8th grade, but I remember it.
I think it's 93, right?
Yeah, I remember somebody said they had like a screenshot of Kurt Loiter, and they'd be like, when this guy came on your screen, it was
bad news. Bad news. MTV News.
Damn, give me some good news for once, Kurt.
Kurt Loder has never brought good news, like ever. Kurt Loder, you could search it. He announcing Tupac's death. Like Kurt Loder was the Grim Reaper, man. The Grim Reaper in the 90s. TV News.
And see, that's another. Like I never had MTV growing up because where I lived, we were way out in the sticks. My dad had climbed up I told this story. My dad had climbed up a pine tree like 80 feet or 100 feet up and topped the pine tree and put an antenna up the pine tree. And so I never had MTV. We never had cable. You can get cable there now, but barely where I grew up. You could probably get, I don't know if you can get cable. You can probably get like DirecTV, but you'd have to do like satellite internet and stuff like that. It's just out in the middle of nowhere.
I used to watch over the summer at my grandmother's house, MTV Jams, and I'm drawing a blank. It was Bill Bellamy and
there was someone else.
Oh yeah, there was
Bill Bellamy.
no the fine host. What was her name?
No, wasn't Rachel. That's all I know.
Rachel, rather be in Caribbean Sands with Rachel. It was not Ananda because that was Beats. She did MTV too, but there was another one. That's gonna bother me.
Now it's going to bother me too. You just derailed this whole show. Tell us about Matt Coleman. Tell us about the loss of Matt Coleman. I'm trying to figure out who Bill. I don't remember Bill Bellamy ever having a co-host on this show.
It wasn't a co-host, and I said, but when Bill wasn't there, she was hosting. I feel like it started with a V. Man, that's
Okay.
gonna bother me.
They're just throwing names out here. Daisy, Lala.
It
Yeah.
wasn't Lala. It
Fuente.
might have been Daisy. It wasn't Lala. She was before Lala.
Throwing names out there for you. Yeah, I never ever watched MTV growing up, and that's probably why I don't have a huge understanding of a lot of I never saw music videos at all. So
My grandparents, we didn't have we originally we didn't have cable during like that time in my life, but my grandparents did, and they live right next door to me. So that's where I got my fix for music videos. I'm gonna find out who Kenny figure this out because we've got a radio show to do, and now you've ruined the whole thing. I don't know what's happening here.
do you guys want me to talk about Matt Coleman while you research?
How are the Kings going to replace? It's been such a positive offseason. How are the Kings going to replace Matt Coleman now? Because that's the extent of the Kings news that we've got today.
Yeah, so Matt signed in Istanbul, Turkey, right? It just good for him. I mean, this is kind of coming for a little while.
That's kind of like that's kind of like when you go overseas, it's like I'm stepping away from like the NBA dream because I can go make money I can go make a living overseas. Like it's the difficult decision to make a good living overseas and to probably kind of part with that NBA dream a little bit.
Yeah, if you're not going to have a two-way contract, then it's really hard to make a living in the G League. I mean, I think it pays I don't know, 70 grand. I think that's what the new G League salary is. And it's not, I guess that's for half the year, so it's not horrible money, but you can go make a couple of $100,000 overseas and, do just fine for yourself. And maybe you come back when you're 24, 25, 26 and make another run at it when you're more mature and you've got a little bit more, I don't know, experience under your belt at higher level competition. But it's a good thing for him. And I think for the Kings, it's kind of a bummer because he's a guy that makes your G League team watchable because he's a guy that kind of controls the tempo of a game. And he's a very good floor general for his age. Even though he's not a huge assist man, he still has just sort of this swagger to him that allows him to be part of, to run the show. So they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do there at the G League level. But, it's okay. Because Vivek's daughter has got that under control.
I'm sensing a smidge bit of sarcasm to that remark.
Wow.
Let's not forget this whole thing turned around when Atnani took over on lottery day. Everything changed when Atnani became the assistant general manager.
Once again, we got to thank Atnani.
It's it's a big job. That's to underestimate what being a GM or an assistant GM at the G League level is. It's a big job because you got to know the game in a different way. You got to know so many additional prospects, so many additional agents that aren't your typical run-of-the-mill agents that that every single top-tier draft pick is signing. Well, there's another group of agents for the guys that are playing in Europe or the guys that are playing in the G League, guys that are trying to make it. It's just a totally different world. So, it's going to be difficult. You gotta put together a squad though, because that's a functional part of your franchise. It's where you're going to put Nimi. It's where you're going to hide Keon Ellis and try to get these guys, minutes. And not only you want to put them in a situation to succeed, and Matt Coleman is a guy that helps your guys succeed. He's a guy who knows how to set up he understands what's happening. He understands who it is that the franchise is trying to build at that level. And he's he catered to that, and it's a good attribute to have.
Yeah. I got another question about that, but I got to give a shout out to Ryan. Ryan absolutely was outside. Only me and Ryan were the only ones outside or inside watching MTV Jams, but it was the lovely Idalis. Remember her? Remember Idalis?
Was she in the Wu-Tang Clan?
Thank you.
Idalis used to host when Bill Bellamy wasn't there. And she
Dallas still. It's escaping me. I don't.
Idalis was. You'll see her and you'll be like, oh yeah, Idalis.
She appeared on Living Single, season 5 of Living Single, as she appeared on the Wayans Brothers as well. Yeah, I missed this one. She starred in Baps. I missed this one.
Why was she? Who was she in Paps? I'm gonna have to check that out later. But yeah, thanks, Ryan. But
I believe she was herself. I'm serious. I think she was herself in that.
I think they were. That might have been when they were trying out to be backups in the music video and be stars in LA, and she probably ran into Halle Berry and the other young lady.
That's how it works. Halle Berry and the other young lady.
She was actually the other girl in BAP. She was actually in How to Be a Player. She was Bill Bellamy's sister. I can't remember her name though.
Yeah.
I know who Halle Berry is.
There you go, James.
But
Never be Eric Benet, James. That's life's number one rule. Don't ever be Eric Benet. Yeah. You figure that out later. Go ahead.
Matt Coleman. I was telling Damien.
We're really asking multiple questions on Matt Coleman.
No, not Matt Coleman. This one isn't Matt Coleman.
Let's go deep into
during summer league, they were people were like, "Oh, we want to see more Matt Coleman instead of Frankie Ferrari," and I said I wanted to see more DJ Stewart and see what he had going on. They eventually played him towards the end of the season. Do they have any hopes for DJ Stewart, or is he literally just like a camp body, a G League body? I thought DJ Stewart looked all right in the game or two that he played.
I don't know. I'm never impressed anytime I watch him play. He's got a big time like upside to him, but before you get to an upside, you have to actually be a player. And so for me, I haven't seen anything there. Like if they're able to bring in Frankie Ferrari, that's huge, because he is a guy who is it's just gonna help in the growth of the other players. You're guys that you want to actually bring up eventually, the Keon Ellis, the Neemias Queta, those guys. When it comes to Stewart, like you're just waiting for him to like figure it out. But Addie Murphy like is a better version of him. That's every time I watch the two of them play, I always think Murphy just looks way better as a player. So maybe there's something that they see behind the scenes that I don't. That has made them like they were pretty high on him last year, but at this point, whether he's
DJ
at the
Stewart's still pretty young though, isn't he? Isn't he like 20?
Oh yeah, he's super young. He's young, and I don't think Murphy is that old either. But they're guys that if they're gonna make it, they probably need to do what Matt Coleman's doing right now: go overseas, play against grown men. Get beat up on, come back, and like let's see if you've learned from the exercise.
The fear is being able to get back, I assume.
Well, yeah, that's always a fear, but like if we go back and look at like we were talking about it last week, the Pat Bev conversation when it comes to comping him to Davion Mitchell. I mean, he went overseas and played in Greece, and he played in a couple of places before he made it back. That's a part of the journey for a lot of these guys. It's what I like to call the self-made man in the NBA. Your guys like Garrett Temple, that they have to fight so hard to get there, and then when they do get there, they're so refined in who they are and what they do, and they're such good teammates, and they're such a big part of the culture of the team because they know what it's like to be on the outside looking in. And it's like like a kid walking down the street and your mom walks past a toy store and kid's stuck to the window, but you don't have any money to buy those toys and you don't get to go in there. And that's for a lot of players, that's what the NBA is. It's like something that you're fighting to get into, and then there's this whole group of players that are in the league that don't respect it at all, that don't do the work, that are into the lifestyle, that aren't 100% focused, and those guys end up out of the league really quickly because there's always 2 or 3, 4 guys that are fighting and finally clawing their way into the league. And it's a good thing. That's the way. That's what keeps the league healthy.
Do you like how often do you see that? Like a guy go, we talk about like Shabazz Muhammad who was trying to make that transition back into the league. I know Michael Beasley tried it a couple of times, but can you remember of a time with the Kings or anywhere else in the league where it was like successful, where a guy who's in the league has to go prove himself overseas and worked his way back into the league to be successful? Doesn't seem like it happens too often.
Yeah, I mean, I think Temple is the biggest. He had made his way back into the league before he signed in Sacramento, but then he made his money in Sacramento. I think when he signed a 3-year, $24 million deal, the first year he made more money than all of his other years combined in the league. But I also, I remember Jack Cooley making it to the league, and it wasn't what he wasn't going to play huge minutes or anything, but he made it back to the league. I mean, look at Hassan Whiteside, burned himself out of the league in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
He went to China. He played in some crazy. He played in Lebanon, I believe. Like he made his way around. Yeah, people are bringing up PJ Tucker. There are quite a few.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there are quite a few guys that do find their way back into the league, but it's the lifers. It's the guys that are so focused on how do I get better. It's not how do I go be a star somewhere else. So like when we're looking at Chima Moneki, this is a guy who went undrafted. Let's see what he's got, And I look at him versus KZ Okpala, and you got 2 guys who are basically on minimum deals. Who is it that appreciates it more, that understands, their place in the NBA more, who understands how they're hanging by a thread and is willing to take advantage of the opportunity, and who isn't, and I'll even throw Terrence Davis is a guy who, I think he went undrafted, was cut like once or twice before he ended up in Toronto, and then was a stud in his rookie season. Like there's plenty of times that it happens. It's really hard to scout and come down to just 60 guys and think that you're going to be able to come up with, a group of players in that 60, and all of them are going to make it. And then there's going to be a handful of guys that come back and make it to the league later and are better than what you thought.
Was Keon Clark one of those guys? I feel like he might have been.
I
can't remember. I
can't
know he went to
remember either.
UNLV, but I thought he like went overseas and then came back to the league. I don't know.
Yeah, the Kings have had plenty of guys who are like in and out of the league. Troy Williams.
Looks like Keon Clark has been a NBA guy.
Oh,
Denver, Toronto, Sacramento, Utah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
6 years. You mentioned Neemias Queta and Keon Ellis a minute ago. When you have guys like that, particularly with 2, we could take those names out of it and just reference 2-way guys across the league. But obviously with Queta and Keon Ellis, they're ones that we're all familiar with. Do they become a focal point for the G League team? Will those 2 guys be a focal point for Bobby in the sense of, they've got to be ready almost at a moment's notice to go up and be ready to play, here in Sacramento? Did they become a little bit, I hate to use like a higher priority, so to speak?
Yeah, they're totally higher priority. I mean, you're basically looking at guys that are on half of a minimum scale contract. So they're making 500,000 and everyone else is making like 70, maybe a little bit more. I can't remember exactly what G League players are making now, but it's still really low. And so, yeah, I think it is, those guys are going to be completely the focal point, but they're focal points in a different way. So I think Queta has the ability to be like this major hub. And when you're down in the G League level, what they should be doing with Queta is running a ton of pick and rolls, but then on top of the pick and rolls, doing a ton of traffic where they're running the ball through him. You need to improve his passing ability. He's got it. He does, but You need to pull it out of him. You need to refine it. You need him to feel more comfortable as a passer. And those are things that you can learn at the G League level. But then with Keon Ellis, that's kind of a tough one, because what you want from Keon Ellis is for him to be this incredible 3-and-D guy. What you don't want for him to do is to go to the G League and think that's where he's going to, be a point guard, and that's where he's going to start handling the ball and dribbling the ball 14 times and doing something that's not who he's going to be at the NBA level. And so I've always thought that the G League should be used for two things. It should be used to create player archetypes like a 3-and-D wing, because you can do that. And then it should be for maybe one or two guys that just have incredible potential and you want to see if they can make it. And that's a guy like Keita that has all this skill, but his body has to catch up. He needs more experience. He played at a smaller college, all that stuff. You don't want a bunch of those guys, because then it becomes like a glorified all-star game down there. So I think Keon Ellis, what you want him to do is play alongside a guy like Frankie Ferrari, where he's not going to be handling the ball a lot. You can bring him along slowly and say, okay, let's give you a little bit of playmaking opportunity and stuff like that. But you don't want too much of that. You want him to be just a defensive stalwart and a three-point shooter.
That's James Ham right there, creator of the King's Beat. You can head over to thekingsbeat.com, become a premium subscriber. You can check out the podcast while you're there. Sign up for the newsletter. Also, if you missed any part of today's show, you can download the D'Lo and Casey podcast wherever you get podcasts from. Remember, Jesse doesn't get to eat if you don't download the podcast. We're available on Apple, Spotify, the Odyssey app. We're available wherever you get podcasts from.